You got to figure out how to get more leads, because if you have one source of leads, what happens if your Meta account gets banned? What happens? The agency that's running your ads goes out of business. Happens all the time, right? Tiny agencies, very effective, also go out of business. They don't have cash flow. They have cash flow management problems. They have, someone got paralyzed, someone had an accident. Bad things happen all the time. So your acquisition engine is kind of broken. You don't have an acquisition engine. You sort of have a weak pipeline where something is throwing off some leads, but it's not working anymore for whatever reason. Actually, these things also have an ebb and flow. So sometimes Meta ads, when everyone's using them, they're great, but they're also very expensive, and no one's using YouTube ads as much, or no one's talking about pay-per-click as much, and you can go back and try to get some of that traffic. You don't want to spend your own time though. Find an agency, find someone else to do it for you, find some way of automating those systems where you can test new platforms. Here's the thing about marketing. It's three things, right? Here's the triangle of marketing as Dan Kennedy presents it. The market, which is basically who you're selling to. The message, which is what you're saying to them, where you're addressing what's in it for me, right? And then the media, which is how you're reaching them. So how people test their market, because they can, it's easy, right? With modern advertising, they test their message all the time, which is also easy with modern advertising, but then they forget to test media sources, right? Sources, how many sources can you tackle? Online, there's like 50 different sources that you haven't tested yet. Offline, you probably have nothing that you've tested yet. So you have everything from direct mail to magazines to all sorts of things, right? Billboards. We also want to talk about, and this is something I wanted to talk about in a previous stream, but I could not due to a lack of time. But you always pay for visibility, okay? You always pay for visibility. People are talking about paid ads versus free content. Nothing is free. There's no free media. It's a misnomer. Okay, if you spend time creating content, like I'm creating content right now, we're talking about this stream, and we don't have a lot of traffic today, but we're going to have a lot of traffic in a year. It takes time to build that up, right? It takes a long time to build that up. This is the graph. You don't have a lot of viewership, and then you have high viewership, but then eventually it tapers off. Okay, it takes a long time to build that. That time is money. It's actually more valuable than money. You can always get more money. You can't get more time. Should you do it? Sure. But paid media, it's the fastest. It's also the least reliable over the long term, least sustainable, but it's also the fastest. If you want customers today, this is the way. But you cannot rely on one source of paid traffic either. And you're always paying for traffic, whether online or offline. Yes, offline. So why are people paying $50, $60, $70, $100,000, $200,000 a month for retail real estate, commercial real estate? Why? Could they not go 50 miles out of the city and get it for 1/4 of the price? Of course they could. They're not just paying for space. In fact, space is not quite as important as visibility. Visibility is what they're paying for. You get a shop on 5th Avenue in New York, you're not paying $200,000 a month for the space. You could have gotten the square footage anywhere. What you cannot get is the visibility that you get from being on 5th Avenue. There's just so much traffic. You're paying for that traffic to look at your billboard, to look at your signage, look at your frontage, look at your, products. That's advertising. You're paying for advertising. You're always paying for advertising, always. Even when you get free traffic, if you write a blog on your company's website, and that attracts a lot of traffic, which I don't know if it works in 2025. I don't think it does. It might not. It might just be one of those things where it's become an anti-moat. If you are a serious business with a serious online presence, you gotta have a blog. If you don't have a blog, then, it's the opposite of a moat. But having a blog is no longer an advantage. Well, having a YouTube channel might be an advantage. However, if you just depend upon the YouTube channel, there is a chance that YouTube might just decide to one day ban your channel. Happens every single day. People are talking about it, complaining about it every single day. They complain about how YouTube just killed their platform, which they built over years of painstaking effort. But YouTube doesn't care. It's their platform, isn't it? So if you put all your eggs in one basket, you got no one else to blame but yourself. So that's your problem. Okay, moving on to the third one, which is another one that we keep hearing. People say, my team is really good and they're all working very hard. We are all busy as hell, but nothing important actually moves faster. How do I figure out what to stop doing and what to double down on? Well, we already kind of sort of talked about it, right? But there are really, I'm going to say it again, if you're doing a lot of work but not moving the needle, you really need to figure out two things. The obstacle, because that is the way. And when I say obstacle is the way, it's the thing that is making you mentally uncomfortable. The source of discomfort, the thing that you want to avoid. I would like to avoid this for now. The other way of testing this, or the other litmus test, or the right hand thumb rule here, is if you're saying, tackle it when I'm ready, I'll tackle it when I'm ready. If you're saying that, that's the thing. That's the thing that you need to tackle right now. That's potentially the thing that's bottlenecking you right now. If you're waiting for the perfect conditions to align before you tackle something, that's the thing that is holding you back. That often is the only thing that's holding you back. The second thing is, obviously, time. Just look at your time logs. What are you spending most of your time on? Ask your people to track their time. What are they spending most of their time on? And then figure out a way to systemize the process. That's it. Look, I get the instinct of you hiring new people and you want them to work hard and you want them to basically earn their wages, right? I get that. Here's the thing, your employees are also human beings like you, and they only perform at peak capacity if you don't overload them. That's the part management doesn't really understand. And that's the gripe that most employees, especially A players, have with their management. You're often going to find B players or C players, they actually stay overtime. They like the overtime. They like making more money, and that's their life. They can work 12 hours a day. They're hard workers. But the A players always want autonomy. They want autonomy. They want learning, and most of all, they want growth. They also want money, but they also want autonomy, learning, and growth. How do you give them autonomy, learning, and growth? By letting them have a creative and free mind. Instead of saddling them with busy work, let them express ideas and test those ideas cheaply and fast. That's why you hire the A players. You want exponential growth. You don't want tiny little, get this yard cleaned kind of thing. Imagine hiring an A player for $300,000 a year and then getting them to sit on the reception for you. I saw that with a customer, with a potential prospect who never became a client. I was just astounded. They had this A player, really good hiring process, a very intelligent dude, very smart, very presentable, had a ton of great ideas. I spoke to him for like 20 minutes and I was astounded by the ideas he was bringing to the table. In fact, in a lot of cases, they could have just not hired me and just let him implement his ideas and would have had, a great explosive run into the next few years. But this guy was just sitting there reading a book because he had nothing to do. And then they just saddled him with busy work, just sit at the reception, answer the calls, so on and so forth. And you can have someone at 1/5 the price of that employee doing that same thing, You got to look at what people are doing and what their time is going towards. If they're wasting their time doing repetitive tasks, even if they're employees, give them the tools, give them the technology, give them the automations, give them the AI, give them the ability and the training to be able to clear out that busy work so that they have mental freedom to think about how to help you grow your business, because they are also vested in it. And you can always have performance linked bonuses or profit linked bonuses. That's a key, right? That's one of the secrets that I always talk about. I never share equity with anyone, but I always share profits. Everyone gets to work hard and they have an incentive to work hard, even though they don't have any equity and they're not building any equity. I don't know why people do that. It's not my style. I completely understand where a lot of companies are coming from. They don't have the money to pay for that equity. But in my particular case, I'd rather pay the money rather than the equity, because business growth is just exponential. If you are patient enough, if you stick to it long enough, within 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you can achieve massive amounts of money. And I like to keep my equity in-house.